Hello, and welcome to the next edition of Career Conversations. Joining me this time is a good friend of mine, Peter Ruppert, who is the CEO of Fusion Education Group and the author of his new book, Limitless. This is a fantastic book that I highly recommend everybody get. This is going to be required reading for the interns at Service Express this summer. I read it myself and chock full of good perspectives and advice for people at any level in their career. And so today on episode 1, Pete's going to join me and we're going to talk about dreaming big and casting a vision for the future. So here we go. So time for another Career Conversations. This time I have Pete Ruppert with me, a good friend of mine from YPO here in West Michigan. And Pete is the CEO of Fusion Education Group. And he recently wrote a book called Limitless that I have right here. And we're going to use that as the basis for some topics. It was a great book that I read and had some really interesting topics in there that we're going to dive into here together today. But Pete, welcome to Career Conversations.
Thanks, Ron. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So Pete, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. You did your undergrad where?
I did my undergrad at a small school in Indiana called DePauw University in Greencastle, Indiana, and grew up in Cincinnati originally. Went to school at DePauw, and then after DePauw, I worked for Procter and Gamble. I was in sales and sales management for 3 years there. Then I went off and got my business school degree. And after business school, I was in consulting for a while, and I had my own consulting firm. And then got in education about almost 25 years ago. And that's what brought us to West Michigan when I was hired to be president of National Heritage Academies, and did that for about 8 years. And then started this organization, Fusion Education Group. It's been almost 14 years now, Ron.
Wow. And tell me, remind everybody here, I got to have you tell them, where did you get your MBA?
I went to Harvard Business School for my MBA.
Yes.
Which is a big joke that Ron and I have with each other all the time.
So people know my story of having my teaching degree from Central Michigan University. So how did a CMU chip and a Harvard business grad get together and become great friends and talk business? And we have a lot of fun with that, and I love it. I had to have you bring that up. And one of the things I loved about your book, and I hope we can weave that into some topics today for people, is just so often people see somebody like you in your position as CEO, successful by all means, right? And think what an easy road it must have been, and a Harvard business grad, and how it's probably just a smooth career trajectory. And of course, if you read the book, and I know you, I know that like most success stories, was built many years in the making and had a number of setbacks. And it wasn't that you had setbacks; it was how you reacted to those setbacks. I think that has set you apart and made all the difference. And I hope we can weave some of those into our conversations. I love how you did that in the book.
Well, thanks, Ron. Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest reason why I wrote that book, because when I know when I was younger, I'd see these successful executives or people in all walks of life, and you just think that they had all the talent, they had all the skills, they had this straight line, the trajectory to success, and weren't they lucky, right? When in reality, as I in my early career, and I talk about this in the book, when I was studying successful people to kind of help guide my path, I learned how often failure was such a key part of what they had gone through. And so many times we see folks on this and put them on this pedestal, and think it's always been like that, when in reality, the work and the grit and the needing to get off the mat time and time again is vital part of who they became.
Absolutely, and especially in today's social media world, right? The cool things to post, or the ones that resonate, aren't the hours you're sitting there alone in the office at nights or on weekends, or that you're grinding away, or that you're struggling with stress or pressure or decisions or things like that. There's no post at 3 a.m. It's like, I'm up at 3 and I can't get back to sleep, because even if you're not straight, your mind just starts working and you're going, and it's hard to have that off button, right? And so I just love it when leaders are authentic and really share some of those things. I think that's what resonates. I had the same thing. Like, it looks so easy. In reality, it's anything but. And so that leads me into, some of the topics I want to get into are chapters in your book, and they're not in particular order. But the first one, I love this, like, dream big, then make it bigger. Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah. You know, and this is kind of reflective of what we've already hit on a little bit, but so much of what I learned along the way was the power of vision, right? And I saw a video, gosh, it had to be 20 years ago, Ron, 25 years ago. The first time I saw it was a guy by the name of Joel Barker. He put together the power of vision. It was a 7-minute video I saw at a conference or something. It's really dated, done in the 70s, I think, but it just talks about the power of vision. And when people think about, people and organizations think about where their end state is, what they want to be, and how that can be transformative. And I've learned from my own studying, and my own life has been a big part of that. Is the when we write down where we want to be, not just tomorrow or next year, but when we think in terms of years, like 10 years or 20 years or 25 years, and if we write that newspaper clipping about our life, or if you will, and say, okay, in 25 years, this is what I want to be doing, or maybe it's 10 years, depending on your time frame,
Hmm.
and you write it out as descriptively as possible, writing goals down, writing vision statements down, or creating a vision board for the more artistic and visionary folks. It just is so powerful, and your brain just subconsciously grabs hold of that and starts helping you work toward that. And that idea of dreaming big, it starts by thinking way beyond just today. And
Right.
and I say dream big and then make it bigger, because most people are limited in how big they'll dream because of their own current paradigm or their current circumstances that they're in. And so when they think about dreaming big, it's micro steps or not big enough steps. And I think a big part of that for me was this Harvard Business School thing that we've talked about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when I was an intern in college, I was working for this entrepreneur in Dallas who had gone to Harvard Business School, and I just had him on a pedestal, like we mentioned. And he, one day we were driving to a meeting he was taking me on, and he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about going to business school?" And I said, not really. I was just planning to graduate and go get a job like most college graduates at the time. And he said, "Well, you should really think about that." And he goes, "What about Harvard Business School?" And I almost laughed. Um, and but he kind of then took 15 minutes to talk to me, and we interacted about why he thought I could actually get into Harvard Business School. And he raised the own lid of my own expectations, and it changed how I thought about my future. And I went back from that on. I wrote down that goal, and I started thinking about, okay, what do I need to do in order to prepare myself to at least have a chance of it? And sure enough, 4 or 5 years later, when I applied, I got in. And if he had never had that conversation with me and never encouraged me to not just dream big, but dream bigger,
Yeah.
and make it bigger, it never would have occurred, for sure.
I love that. I love going. There's a couple things to unpack there. One, that was a book. You said The Power of Vision
It was a video.
video. Is it
I
on
guess
YouTube?
what
Can
do you
you
call
find
it?
it on
DVD,
YouTube?
I
Or
guess back then. What's
yeah,
that?
can you find it on YouTube today? Do you know, or is it what?
I think you can. You certainly can. And if not, I think you can order a DVD of it. I mean, it's like I said, late 70s, early 80s. So when you watch it, you read it, but the message is so powerful. Joel Barker, The Power of Vision.
Our younger generation will have to research how to find a DVD player and put that in. But with Service Express, we have our goal setting program that we do here, and everybody in the company does it. And we have what we call vision talks. So I love that title, and I love what you're talking about, because we call them vision goals, which is to think about what is everything that you want to achieve on a personal, professional, and financial basis while at Service Express in your life. How does Service Express be a part of that? How do we come alongside? So professionally, you're in the right seat, doing what you're passionate about, getting great results. And then where do you want to go in your career progression, whether it's staying in the same position and evolving with the company, or changing positions or locations, or what have you. Same with finances. What are your financial goals? And what are your personal goals? How does this fit into your work life balance or work life integration? So we call them vision goals. We've done it here for over 20 years. My first ones are handwritten. You talk about if you're creative and have a storyboard. I'm not creative, as people who know me, but I have handwritten ones still here in my desk, back from the late 90s, of things I want to achieve. And I love to go back and read through those. And I get a kick out of them. And a couple of things. One, it's interesting how many I've achieved, which has been great. I've been fortunate. Also interested how many have changed. What I thought I wanted at that time have changed, right? I started doing those before I had a family and before Service Express grew to where it's at now. And so you see what you achieved, what things evolve. That's why we talk about doing at least once a year, if not twice a year, updating our vision goals, because this is a journey and we're always evolving and growing, and these things change for us. And so we're a big believer in that. I like to use a quote that says, make your dreams so big that they make other people laugh. Right. And
That
I
is
think
great.
that
And I think that's so critical because I think that's part of it too, is you have to, if you're going to dream big and chase your dreams and do something special that's unique and different from others, sometimes you have to rid yourself of the people that you surround yourself with. And Ron, you and I've heard this statistic many times that we're all the average of the 10 people we
right.
spend the most time around. Right. And sometimes those people aren't going to they're not going to support you. They're going to want you to stay as you are so you fit in with them, not break free to go chase some big dream ahead of you. And so being willing to find new peers, new partners, new champions, as I call it in the book, that'll help you and support you in your dream chase is really important.
The other thing I think we talk a lot about here is that sometimes you have to speak it into existence. Like you first have to say it out loud. Like here at Service Express, we'll end this year a little north of 200 million in revenue, right? And we just crossed 100 million a few years ago. And I remember a couple years ago at a retreat we had, and we were kind of danced around the idea of what would we look like as a $1 billion company. And then we kind of laughed and said, "Are we saying this? Is this what we're saying? Like we using the B word? Like, yeah, we want to one day be a $1 billion company." And we laughed and said, first you have to say it. And we were all kind of chuckling. And then you start to think about it. And then you start to take actions towards it. And then it starts to inform your strategies as you look in your company. Do we scale to that? What will, what won't? And that brings you back to start to work and implement those things and but if you never speak it into existence, right, then sometimes you never get started on that plan. That's what I found.
Oh,
Um,
Ron, I think that is absolutely spot on. And in fact, I use these three things when I talk to others who say, "Hey, I'm going to do this someday," or "I want to do this." There's three things I always say that prove to me that you're really committed. One, have you written it down? If you have you written it down formally as a goal, as specifically and in as much detail as possible. Two, have you told somebody else you respect about it, not just in passing in a flippant way, but to say, "Hey, I want you to know that this is what I want to become." And for you, talking amongst your peer group on your executive team to say, "Hey, we want to become a $1 billion company," that's when you start getting serious. And then three, have you started to take the first action toward it?
right.
Right? Because so often we get stuck at the starting blocks and we refuse to take those first actions or two that are absolutely critical to getting going. And that's the hardest step, is the first one.
It's the power of the BHAG, like Jim Collins calls it in Good to Great and Built to Last, the big, hairy, audacious goal that changes the way you think and you see things. Now, when you have a big goal, it says, is this helping me getting towards that, or is this taking me away from it? And it just makes you answer that question and put some things in perspectives. Uh,
Yeah, it's a great point. Another great example I'll just lend real quickly is that BHAG is when I started this company way back when in 2007. Um, for the first 2 or 3 months, I was by myself, and then I hired uh, a couple of my old executives from our days at National Heritage Academies, and we were sitting around and we created our vision statement. And at the time, we had 0 schools and no revenue.
yeah,
And we decided that our vision, our BHAG, was to create over 100 schools someday across the country that are changing lives of thousands of kids. And so we actually printed that up. We formalized it. We printed on a big piece of foam core in our tiny little office. When you entered, we put it behind the receptionist desk and it says vision of 100 schools someday. And I remember early people who were trying to sell us stuff or something would kind of walk in and giggle because we had no schools, or maybe 1 or 2 or 3 schools eventually. And people were kind of rolling their eyes that, who are these guys to think they're going to have 100 schools? Well, now we're north of 80 and serving thousands of kids. And, there's no doubt in my mind we'll get to that 100 mark. But at the time, that's a perfect example of dream big and then make it bigger and then write it down and tell people about it.
I love it.